Next, we've got Peter Gilks, who's here with Slalom Consulting. He is one of the Zen Masters that Andy was just talking about. So, Peter, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rich. Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out. I love the shirt.
Thanks for having me.
Got
Thank
the
you very
little
much.
Zen brushstroke thing going on there.
Yep.
So, tell us about your role as a Zen Master, and tell us about Slalom Consulting. And
Sure.
what you do
Okay.
there.
So I work for Slalom Consulting in New York. I'm a solution principal in the data visualization practice there.
Cool.
I've been working there for 2 years. I've actually been using Tableau for just over 5 years.
Wow.
I used to work in a bank in the UK. That's when I started using it. And one of the things I started doing really probably 2 or 3 years ago was trying to give back to the community. The Tableau community is very active, as you probably know. There's lots of people tweeting, lots of blogs, etc.
Right.
So I kind of started my own blog, which has become quite popular, and people nominated me to the Tableau Zen Master status because of that. Yeah.
Very cool. Have you been to the Iron Vises before in previous conferences?
I have. I've not entered the Iron Vises, but I've been there to watch. My colleague John Mathis won last year.
Really?
It was
Fantastic.
a great moment. He did fantastic. And another colleague of mine, Matt Chambers, is going to be there tomorrow, so we'll be there rooting for him.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what did John do when he threw that together? It's not really throw it together.
Well, no,
it's a lot of stuff.
He definitely wasn't thrown together. Didn't they give him the data set a couple of days in advance? The data was Yelp data for Las Vegas, I think for restaurants mostly.
Got it.
And so he spent most of last year's conference, I think, preparing very hard, which means this year he's relaxing. But a lot of the guys from Slalom helped by, while he was practicing, distracting him. So like people were driving around on like tricycles and like waving things in his face to try and replicate the atmosphere of Iron Viz. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Did you get to drive any tricycles or anything?
I actually unfortunately wasn't there. Some of the colleagues were doing it, but yeah. I was
Next time you can
for
do it for Matt tonight, I guess.
Yeah, actually we might do that. Yeah.
Or during the conference, you can like
we'll
get a
be very
megaphone
loud.
and yell at him.
We'll be very, very loud during the Iron Viz. Absolutely.
Cool. So get back to some serious stuff. What do you guys do with Tableau? How does Slalom use this for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, we use it in a lot of different ways, and our customers will range from pretty small companies to huge enterprises.
Okay.
We will, really try and help them get the best out of Tableau and the best out of their investment. So that can be realized in a few different ways. On one hand, it might be as much as just going in and helping them build some dashboards. It might be providing training and mentoring for them.
Got it.
It also might be, if they're a real large implementation, helping them strategize how they're going to roll out the tool, how they're going to get the people and processes in place that enable them to use it properly, so it becomes a successful tool and not just another IT burden.
Shopware, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And what would you say is the biggest challenge out of all that strategizing and training and everything? What do you see reoccurring patterns that customers? What if I was coming to you as a customer?
Yeah.
What flags could you hold up to me and say, hey, watch out for this?
So one of the things that we come across a lot is that one of the things Tableau is great at is it really inspires innovation and creativity. So lots of people will start using it and really want to create things and show it to their colleagues and present it as well as they can, which is something we really don't want to stop. We don't want to lock people down into like, you must go through this process, only this person can do this. That's not the nature of the tool. That's not the idea behind the philosophy of Tableau. Everyone should be involved.
Right.
On the other hand, once you do have that situation where there may be hundreds or thousands of people creating their own content, you get problems about, well, which one's single source of the truth?
Right.
Are these going to be up to date? Who's maintaining them? Who's responsible for making sure they meet certain quality and performance barriers?
Right.
So it's trying to create an environment for them where it allows their users to become creative analysts and do the work they want to do. Don't restrict them. At the same time, don't have an environment which is complete Wild West anarchy. Because as soon as that happens, then one of two things happen. Either people stop trusting it because they've seen the same dashboard 5 times, they don't know which one's which, right? Or performance slows down, so they get aggravated by that.
Right.
Or IT just say, forget it, we're going to lock you completely down, and then you lose what was there from the first place. So we help our clients try and strike a balance between the two. We have we just come out with actually a new kind of approach to this, which is called Slalom Navigator.
Okay.
It's really just a best practice toolkit that we can take into people and help them think through what they need to do from a very high level, but also right down to the details of how do you set the right permissions for which people, so it's kind of making sure people have the tools to be implemented properly.
Very cool. And again, the technology is great, but you need the right people. What does, when you walk into a client scenario and you see the exact right person that is sitting down in front of Tableau, what do they look like? Is there such a thing? Or
They
is it all
are
over?
usually, it's not necessarily their background in terms of their education. I've seen people come from all sorts of, they could be engineers, IT people, they could be musicians, makes no difference. The main thing is, I think, inquisitiveness. So you will get people who, they just get Tableau and they just start clicking things.
Okay.
And they start figuring it out. And before you know it, you're trying to train them, but they've already gone 10 steps ahead and built a cool dashboard. And you know that those people are going to be okay, because they're going to figure it out.
Very cool.
So not everyone's like that, and some people are more nervous, I think, about diving in.
Yep.
And that's okay too, but then that's our job to try and kind of nurture them through that process, whereas others will just dive right in and get to it.
Very cool. Yeah. And folks can come to you for any of those services, right? If they wanted to come and say, look, we just want you guys to come in and do a 1-week Tableau training that's specialized in this way, or...
Yeah, absolutely. We do services between 1 week helping somebody get up and running with Tableau through to, multi-month, multi-year. Hey, we're going to bring you Tableau guys, we're going to bring you data architects, we're going to bring you CRM people.
Right.
So Slalom is a kind of full service consultancy. So I get to work a lot with data architects, which I really, really enjoy because it makes my job a lot easier. And project managers and all those people who implement things. So we can do pretty large scale implementations as well.
Very cool. And have you seen, you said you work with everywhere from very small startups up to big enterprise clients. Yep. Have you seen any sort of trend? It seems like a lot of smaller companies are becoming, big giants right out of the gate. And, there just seems to be a lot of disruption in this space. Do you see... I guess the real question at the heart of this is one area growing as fast or faster than any others, or from enterprise to startups?
I don't think necessarily faster. They just approach it in very different ways.
Okay.
The startups do generally approach it in that startup mentality, more like we're going to get this and just try it.
Right.
And then if it doesn't work, doesn't matter. We'll throw it out. Whereas the enterprises, and for good reason, are often much more, right, we have made a decision to go for this.
Right.
So we need it to be a very planned approach, and it probably needs to work. Having said that, you always get pockets within enterprises that behave like startups.
Sure.
So they may have that more agile approach as well. But it's growing everywhere, is the thing. And as more people become more data literate, especially kids coming out of college now who are, the 23-year-olds who are like, grew up. Exactly.
Sure.
Like it's just second nature. So within any organization, usually those people are like pushing it forward, I think.
Got it.
Yeah.
And do you see a challenge for some, like, we asked the question about, enabling folks and companies that maybe enable it, and you can look at it and say they're going to do well. What does it look like if a company, what are some horror stories of a company that didn't maybe do the right things and had to pay a price for it? How can we avoid that? Or
so the things you notice when if it's going wrong or poorly, essentially people stop using it, and the bad word gets around. It becomes a bad word in the organization. And one of the things that I come up against a lot is performance is incredibly important.
Sure.
Like people are not going to sit around and wait 2 minutes for a dashboard to load.
Right.
And they're not going to use data that's a week old, and one of the real key things is nailing a very simple, when we help people design dashboards and everything that's behind that as well, because it's not just the front end. You've got to think, what's the data that's feeding into this?
Absolutely.
The whole thing. When we're looking at that, one of the key things I'm always thinking of is how can I make this as fast as possible? Because a lot of the people I'm really trying to get this to have very incredibly busy days. As they've got lots of other things going on, lots of other data being thrown at them. Sure. They are not going to sit and stare at a screen loading. So performance is key, and a poorly managed environment will degrade performance quickly.
Got it.
And I think that's why it needs to be one of the real key reasons why you want to create an environment that works well is performance, because that's one of the key things that spreads the tool.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And performance, is that something that can be dealt with inside of Tableau, or is it more they are just asking for too much data and you need to have them aggregate, or what?
There are many different approaches to it, so you
Okay.
have to take a pretty holistic view. There are ways that you simply design dashboards. You try and limit the number of things on the screen or get the right things on the screen.
Okay.
Don't just which actually is a good design principle as well as a performance principle. Don't just load loads of stuff on the screen. You want what's really important. So that's something you can absolutely just do on the Tableau side.
Yep.
You can then look at if you have things like calculations in Tableau.
Got it.
There are efficient and inefficient ways to write calculations. And these are, unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through the experience of doing them to realize which is which.
Got it.
But Tableau provides some good tools like the performance recorder, which you can use to...
Performance reporter, you said?
Performance recorder.
Recorder, got it.
And that actually breaks down the load of every query that Tableau sends.
Very cool.
And it enables you to identify where the problems might be.
Got it.
And then you can attack them. Yeah, project I was just recently working on, I was working very closely with my data architects. And we would go through each one and look at the query. And I would basically say, is this query efficient? And he would say, no, you want it to look like this. So I would then try and engineer Tableau to send the most efficient query.
Very cool.
Now this was important because we were dealing with like 80 billion record data sets in dashboards that had to load under 5 seconds.
Wow.
So that was really at the edge of the performance kind of tuning.
Right.
But you need to look at the whole thing. If your Tableau dashboard could be perfect, if your data set is badly designed, it's not going to be fast. And the same the other way around. Data set's great. If your Tableau dashboard is poorly designed, it's not going to be fast. So, and this is, as people do more and more complicated things, more complicated calculations, more complicated displays of data, which inevitably happens as you progress through the kind of discovery with Tableau. You start off maybe fairly simple and they get really deeply involved.
Sure.
You need to look at end to end all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, that makes sense. So 80 billion sounds huge. Has that been your biggest deployment, or what?
That's my biggest that I've worked with so far, yeah. Which is that's a lot of data, actually.
That is crazy.
Transactional level data, yeah. So we were using Amazon Redshift for that on the back end, and connecting Tableau directly. So it's always a live connection, and actually building dashboards on the top of it. And it's taken some work, but we've got it to be actually really, really powerful.
Very cool.
Very fast, and doing some really cool stuff with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And with Redshift being, the fastest growing service in Amazon's history, I'd imagine you see a lot of customers making that tie Redshift
We
to
are
Tableau.
we are a partner with Amazon as well as we are with Tableau, and a large majority of the places we go now want everything on AWS or an equivalent.
Yep.
So we're happy to partner with them on that, and that includes everything from just having S3 buckets to having Redshift to hosting our Tableau server on Amazon as well.
Sure.
So we usually, if that's what they want, we'll put the whole thing in its own like virtual cloud, virtual private network cloud. Have Redshift, have other things in Amazon. We might be doing like Spark in Amazon as well.
Sure.
So it's all hosted there. But we see that huge growth area.
Cool. What about Redshift and Tableau in particular? Are there things customers can do to get better performance? Because there are some key things in Redshift, partition keys and so on and so forth you got to be aware of.
Yeah.
Does any of that influence what you need to do?
It has a huge influence overall. I think that best practices for Redshift full stop will be the same as the best practices for Redshift in Tableau.
Got it.
So making sure, I'm not a data architect, so I might be not get this 100% correct.
Got it.
But you want a good model. You got to have a great data model. We just used a star schema and it worked great. Actually, I will say that one of the things that Tableau does is when it's going to get slightly technical here for a second, but
it's good stuff.
Tableau, the way Tableau queries any database like Redshift is, if you have a classic star scheme with a fact table and dimension tables, if that's an inner join in between it, Tableau will smartly only go to the table it needs to go to.
Cool.
So my fact table could be 80 billion, but my dimension table could be 4 records.
Right.
If I'm only using the dimension,
just skips over.
I want it to not touch the fact table, goes right to the dimension table. If you don't design your data model correctly for what you're going to do, you end up hitting that fact table of 80 billion records when you don't need to. You just want to hit the 4. So things like that around modeling the data become incredibly important because you're always thinking, how is Tableau going to send the query? Once you start understanding how Tableau sends queries, you really start to understand how it works with databases, any database, including Redshift.
Got it.
But then there's the Redshift things that's specific about distribution and sort keys.
Yep.
They're incredibly important. With things like sort keys, we spend a lot of time with the users understanding what are they most likely to want to filter on.
Right.
What's the first question they're going to ask? And then we applied that business requirement to the way that we designed the Redshift database.
Very cool.
To say we're going to sort on this and then this and then this.
Right. And do you go in frequently sometimes and see, I know a lot of companies have grown through acquisitions and so forth, and they've got 20 tools they're using for pretty much everybody on the list.
Yep.
Have you walked into environments like that? And how
Yes.
does Tableau win the battle, or does it usually win the battle?
Well, large organizations, I've seen many that have everything. I don't think necessarily has to always win the battle because it's not always the right tool for the job. And I'm a firm believer in people using the right tool for the job.
Absolutely.
On the flip side, you can't have every single tool under the sun because you have to have some kind of compatibility between them. But on the other side, if Tableau's the best for what they're doing, we absolutely recommend it. If it's not, there are some things that Tableau can't do, and maybe you should just use an Excel for those, and that's fine too.
Absolutely.
But it has to work in an environment where people know which tool is right for which job, and the tools are available to them to do that. That's one of the keys as well.
Cool.
People get frustrated if they can't get access to the tool they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you already gave us one gem, the performance recorder. Sounds really, really cool.
Highly recommend it.
What other stuff do you see as like kind of folks, it takes them a while to trip across this and realize this is a really, really valuable thing inside of Tableau?
There are actually quite a few things in the Tableau interface which are very subtle.
Okay.
Which even, I have used it for 5 years, and I ran a training session and somebody goes, oh, you can do this. And I'd be
Really?
like, oh, okay.
Fantastic.
That's good. One that I learned recently, which everybody laughed at me that I didn't know exists, it's called replace references.
Okay.
And all that means is if you bring a new field in, let's say you had country name, and then you created a new field called country name 2, which had corrected spellings of country name in it.
Okay.
And you just wanted to switch them out in your dashboard, there's a thing you right-click and say replace references.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't know about this for 4 years, and for me that task was incredibly painful. I'd have to go into each worksheet and change them around.
Right.
And then somebody's like, oh, look at that. I was like, oh, okay. It just saved me countless hours of work.
Another efficiency.
Yeah. So there's lots of little things like that. There are lots of people who blog about it, which is a really good way to find out about just general tips about Tableau. Yeah.
And what are some, being somebody who has to keep up on the latest and greatest and all these new things, what are some of the resources that you use personally to
So personally,
stay afloat?
I'm pretty active on Twitter because a lot of the people that I really respect in the kind of Tableau user community are also active on there and have blogs and will post things. The Tableau forums are a great resource too, but I go to Twitter and there's a kind of a number of people, an ever-growing number of people who I really know are going to be smart and have good things to say.
Can you throw up some Twitter handles, including yours?
So mine's at pgilks, P-G-I-L-K-S.
Got it.
That's mine. I can't think of anyone's handle at the moment, but
Sure.
good people are like Jonathan Drummy, Joe Mako, Noah Salvatore, Anya Ahern, Andy Kriebel, my colleagues Nelson Davis, John Mathis, loads of people.
Fantastic.
But it's
Cool.
a great community. Yeah.
It does sound really good. And do you have any, I think you had a presentation yesterday, did I hear? Or
Yeah, I did a presentation on fighting Ebola with data yesterday.
fighting Ebola with what?
Yeah, with fighting Ebola with data.
With data.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's a project we've been doing with the Tableau Foundation
Cool.
for the past year, so it was really nice to present that.
Awesome. Was this the wire signal thing?
This
Or
was
is that
not. This was
different?
a slightly different one. This was about contact tracing, which is where if somebody's met someone who has Ebola, they are followed up on a daily basis to see if they exhibit symptoms. And the program was actually in collaboration with Columbia University and a company called Demagi.
Okay.
And they basically have an iPhone app for doing the surveys to see if people are showing signs of Ebola.
I see.
And that data is then uploaded to a database. And we produce Tableau dashboards upon that data so that people in Guinea could track the spread of Ebola, could see if the contact tracing was being done properly, follow through with those things. So we think it had a pretty big impact. We're pretty proud to be part of it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fighting data with Ebola.
Yeah.
Peter Gilks, thank you so much for being here.
All right.
And
Thank
spending
you.
a part of your day with us.
Okay, thanks very much.
Take care. Thank you very much.